one of the things we used to do was we used to play down in these tunnels. They had, actually this was a sewer, a big sewer, maybe 5 feet in diameter, and it was in the middle of a great big field. And one end of this sewer emptied out into the lake. I don't know, somewhere between 1 mile and 2 miles from where you went down that sewer, but somebody so we went over there and took the top of this sewer off. We took the top of the sewer off, and you can climb down in there. And then you could walk on the sides of the sewer. There wasn't much water down there. And then you could walk on the sides of the sewer, and you could walk all the way down and come out in the lake, or at the lake, you know, on the beach at the lake. When I was in the service, and they had a big tax on cigarettes. And of course, we used to get pretty cheap cigarettes on the ship. The cigarettes at that time, 10 cents a pack or something. Boy, they sell probably $1 a pack or something. I don't really know. I can't remember, but I remember it was a big markup. So everybody used to sneak cigarettes ashore, and they would sell them on the black market. So consequently, everybody used to, you know, take cigarettes ashore, and then they'd, and I was a non-smoker, so I used to buy all my ration of cigarettes. And then I'd sneak them ashore and I'd sell them on the black market, and all the whole weekend I'd have money to run around on. So this one time I was taking these cigarettes ashore. I remember it was in the summertime, and we had our whites on. And I was going, and I had these cigarettes all taped inside my uniform. I had them taped up and down my legs with, I don't know, duct tape or masking tape or something, taped up inside here with one pack sitting on top of the other pack, and I had it on my back with one pack sitting on top of the other pack. I got through this big, in the middle of this big mess of sailors going through this gate in Naples, and pretty soon I'd feel this guy poking me on the shoulder like this, but I didn't pay any attention to it. Just kept going, and he poked me again, and I just kept going, and he poked me again, and then he grabbed my shoulder and stopped me. He says, in Italian, he says, come in the shack here. We want to talk to you. So I go in the shack. He says, what is this? So I knew these guys were, all they wanted was the cigarettes. They did the same thing we did. Okay, you can have the cigarettes. I started taking the cigarettes out of my thing. And when I got about halfway through taking all the cigarettes apart, he pulled my pant leg up, and he looked at the bottom of my pant, and I had cigarettes all taped up and down my pants too, see. So they got all the cigarettes, they gave me 2 packs of cigarettes and let me go. I was afraid they was going to put me in jail. They could have put me in jail. Give me 2 packs of cigarettes and let me go. I think it was 5,000 lire for a case of cigarettes. When I was in Miami, and a lot of times I ate in the Brothers of the Good Shepherd that I told you about. And I think it was Thanksgiving Day. It would have been Thanksgiving Day 1960. It would have been Thanksgiving Day 1962. And I was in this food line for the Brothers of the Good Shepherd. And at that time, my dad had sent me a letter and said, well, just remember, it's if you can't get a job, you can always go to the Salvation Army, which I was already kind of doing, you know. And these other 3 guys I was in the line with them, they were talking to them, and they found out that I had a car, but I didn't have any money for gas. And what they wanted to do was they wanted me to drive the car, and they were going to stop just on the outskirts of Miami somewhere, or some little town. They were going to rob a gas station. They was going to take some plugs and rob this gas station, threaten the owner and rob this gas station, and then they wanted me to drive the getaway car, you know. I thought about that in a while. I said, no, I don't think I want to do that. I don't want any part of that. So at that point, I could have made the crossover and gone right into whatever kind of trouble. I imagine them guys got into a lot of trouble later on. But as broke as I was and everything, I couldn't see doing that. The apartment I had in New Orleans, this apartment I had in St. Charles Street, I had in New Orleans, why, it was it had a sofa there, and it had a little alcove place for a kitchen, and on the other side of this alcove was an alcove for the bed, a little ceiling fan, and the light was just a light in the ceiling that had just a string hanging down, and you would walk to the middle of the apartment was maybe 20 foot or 25 foot square or something like that, and you'd walk to the middle of the room and pull the light on, and then that would be the light for the apartment. So anyhow, after I'd been there a couple of days, I was in the middle of the night. It was pitch black, maybe 4 o'clock in the morning or something, I don't know, but I wanted to get a drink or get something to drink, I can't remember. So I got up in the middle of the night and I fumbled around, and finally I found this light hanging down and moved my hand around. I put my eyes down because when the light comes down it was going to be sharp, and I pulled the cord and put the light on, and this whole floor was solid with bugs. I mean, there was cockroaches and water bugs, and I don't know what all kind of bugs there. I mean, it was running all over the whole day. Of course, they disappeared in about 3 seconds. All them bugs disappeared and ran under whatever they was hiding under and living under, you know. So the next morning I went out and got a couple of bug bombs, and I started spraying all sorts. Of course, probably didn't get all the bugs, or didn't even get a big part of them, but it made me feel better. And I killed a hell of a lot of bugs. More of them cockroaches come out of it. But that's the way it is around in the South, you know. You have a lot of cockroaches and a lot of bugs all over in the South because it's warm. And of course, this apartment where I was in, you know, it was kind of a cheap apartment. It wasn't any exactly upscale, uptown. So that's my bug story there. And another time, I remember I was out with my wave girlfriend. I think her name was Lana. Anyhow, we were out, and we were hitting all the bars and drinking. She didn't drink very much, but every place we went, you know, I had a drink or two. I guess I had too much because the next thing I know, I remember, is I woke up in the middle of this big crowd of people that were all clapping their hands and yelling, and the music was going real loud. And her and I were dancing in the middle of this whole bunch of people, you know. This crowd was maybe 20 people around here. I suppose it was on a weekend. It was a pretty good-sized crowd. And we were in the middle of this crowd dancing like this, and boy, everybody, and all of a sudden I woke up, came to, and I didn't know how to dance. I still don't know how to dance. Didn't know how to dance then, don't know how to dance now. And I was in the middle of this crowd dancing, and they was just raising Cain and having a good old time. And, well, when I woke up, I didn't know how to dance anymore, so that broke the whole thing up then. Let's see, I got out of the service in September of '61. I left Norfolk in December, just before Christmas in '61. I remember eating Thanksgiving or New Year's dinner in the Brothers of the Good Shepherd in Miami. And then I got a job with that Belcher Oil Company. And then I think it was about April that I got a job on a tugboat going from Tampa to Texas City. And then I quit the tugboat. Oh yeah, and I quit the tugboat in Tampa, and I drove to New Orleans because that's where I wanted to go in the first place. Before I joined the Navy, and I ended up in Mobile, Alabama, where I joined the Navy, I was really heading for New Orleans, but I never got there. So now I'm in Tampa, and I said, the heck with I'm going to New Orleans. That's where I wanted to go in the first place, so I started for New Orleans. I go to New Orleans. So then I told you where I got all the things I did in New Orleans. One of the things I used to do is I used to go in these laundromats, and I'd play my saxophone in the laundromats. At that time I had the alto sax with me, and I would play the saxophone and put my clothes in the laundromat and play the alto saxophone. And sometimes people would throw me money too. I had people throw money out the windows where they lived, you know, throw me 50-cent pieces. And because got people all over New Orleans who did that kind of thing. Go uptown and there was some guy playing, doing this or doing that. People would give him money. So this one time I'm playing the saxophone in this laundromat, and this little kid comes in with his grandmother. The grandmother tells the kid, well, I got to go somewhere. And they were like Hondurans or something, like some kind of Spanish. So I start talking with this kid. This kid comes over and starts talking with me, and we talk. I don't know, I mentioned something about working on a tugboat, but I got fired. And he said, my uncle does that. I said, oh yeah, what's his name? He says, his name is Sandy Kirkernel. And here it was the same guy that was on the tugboat with me. And here I just met his nephew in this laundromat in New Orleans. So I said, go over and get him. I said, tell him to come over here. Where's he at? He's just down the street here. I said, tell him to come over. I said, we'll talk. So he comes out here, and we talked, and I found out that he stayed on that tugboat. See, I was the only one that got fired. They kept all the rest of those guys, and I got all my money. All the rest of those guys stayed there, but they never got paid that time. That guy that owned that tugboat, he held off paying them. So then they made another run from Texas City, and they were going to take it up the river to New Orleans. Well, the tug got going up the river to New Orleans, and it got in a real heavy fog. And Sandy Kirkernel was on the bar, tug stalled, and the barge got away from him, and they lost it in the fog. I understand for 3 days before somebody finally found them, and it was cold. You know, they didn't have any just lights. And finally, after 3 days, the Coast Guard found them, and they sent a helicopter and pulled them off on a helicopter or something to that effect. And then years later, I don't know how I ran into him, but I ran into that guy in New York City. When I was sailing out of New York City, I ran into him again.